So by the power of pause and resume, my database is now ready. We could see here that database is showing as available. At the top, there is a green bar which says successfully created database called database1. We have generated your master password during the setup because we asked them to do it, and that will be displayed in the connection detail. This is the only time you will be able to view the password. However, you can modify your database to create a new password at any time. So this is a one-time generated password. If you forget that, then you have to come back to this console and then create it. I could check the connection details here. What are my connection details? So don't worry, I would be deleting it before this video get released. That's why I'm revealing my password here. So this is my admin user, a master password which is generated for me. I could copy it and keep it somewhere so that I could reuse it if the need be. And then I have an endpoint. Endpoint is the location to which I would be making the connection request to talk to the database instance. So this is the location where my database service is running. This endpoint is currently into a private network. So what would happen? So what I could also do, yes, this is a good failover solution, but this standby is not working at all for serving any traffic. So what I could do, I could set up something called a read replica, or in short, we just call it RR. The idea here is if I have some use case where I am having lot of read type of query or lot of read traffic coming to my application, right? That read traffic could be maybe I have a dashboard application, maybe I have a reporting tool which is running, or maybe I am just doing some analysis, and for that I have uh, to do lot of reading on that. So for that I could create a read replica, and this read replica would be getting a new connection string, new endpoint, and then you can point your read traffic to these locations. But people get confused that if I have read replica, it will automatically receive traffic. Answer is no. So if you have one program here, this is your application. Now in this application, you could write code in such a manner that anytime if it is a read write request coming in, or let's say just the write request comes in, you could go ahead and say talk to the primary, right? That we can configure. And anytime a read request comes in, you could say talk to read replica. So you would need now two entries in your application. Whenever write logic kicks in, it will go to primary. Whenever a read request has to happen, you could point it to your read replica. So you could set up a read replica for your databases. And second thing, when you select a read replica, you could select a different size also. In primary and standby, whatever size we had here, the same size was here in terms of CPU, memory, and other setting. But a read replica can be configured with a lower or similar or higher configuration, shouldn't be a problem. And another point, read replica can exist within the same region like I'm showing you here. It can happen in any of the availability zone wherever you want to place, and it can be placed in a different region altogether, in a different VPC altogether. So this is also possible, and when these read replicas are accessed, that is happening over AWS global network. So we will go ahead and first set read replica, and I'll come back and talk about the type of replication which happens here. So I'm here on my database which is available. I want to modify that, and the modification, I want to set up a read replica for my databases. Okay. So for a read replica to function, one thing which has to be enabled is the backup. I just did that modification from the backend. Otherwise, my read replica option would not be displayed. So if you want to ensure that there is a read replica available for your workload, please go ahead and modify. If the backup is not there, enable the backup. And once the backup is enabled, you should be able to create read replica, right? So now I have option here which says I want to have a read replica created. So I'm now going ahead and saying create a read replica. So in this read replica section, I can select multiple settings. So you are creating a replica DB instance from a source DB. The new DB instance will have a source DB instance, DB security group and parameter groups. So these two settings would be as it is into my replica also. I have to select a source. This is my source. DB instance identifier. This is unique key identifying the instance. So you could put information here, right? So that will be my, let's say, read replica 1 database 1, right? Not a very creative name, but it will work. As I said, I could have a different configuration for my read replica as we see here. So I could go ahead and use it's the same one, dbt3 micro, or I could have selected a different class for it. Plus, I could have hosted into a different region altogether. So sometime if your production system are in region 1 and your reporting services or dashboard runs into region 2, so that time read replica can be a really nice choice to go with. You can select it. And if you feel your read traffic would be too much, then you can make it bigger than your existing instances or smaller depending on the type of traffic or number of queries coming to it. I would select different settings here. I could specify storage auto scaling, availability and durability. So that will be already there. So we would have to not create a standby instance because it's a read replica. It won't have another standby. And now once I'm happy with all these settings, I should go ahead and just say I want to create a read replica. So what happens now? That the data, as you could see here from this primary, a read replica is getting created. There will be some time required for it. So I'll pause the video and I'll come back and we'll see how read replica actually works. While this is happening, let's go ahead and talk about one more thing. When you are creating a read replica, this is how your architecture is looking. The replication between primary and read replica is a asynchronous replication. What I mean by that? That there would be little bit of delay when your data is copied here. Maybe after plus few seconds, it would be available here. After plus few seconds, then it would be available here. So there will be always a asynchronous replication happening from primary to standby. Read replica will always be falling little bit behind, and that is referred as lag. So read replica would be lagging from primary database instance. It won't have real-time data, whereas in case of multi AZ, this was a real-time data which is available in standby 2, but here it would be available after a few while. So in case an exam question says I need to have real-time data required for required for some workload, then read replica won't be a choice available for you. It won't serve the purpose best for that particular requirement. Now, once you have this read replica, and as you could see, I can have multiple read replicas also, no problem at all on that. Like I have created one, similarly I could go ahead and create another one also, shouldn't be an issue. And then all my read replica will get their own endpoint information. So read replica 1 will have its own endpoint, read replica 2 which I am sending will have its own endpoint, and I can then redirect my traffic to any of the endpoint depending on my use case. Maybe region B here, all the instances running in region B would be talking to read replica 2, and any instances running into region A, they need access to read data. They will be talking to maybe my read replica 1 here. So these are different endpoints available as you see here. Now, read replica obviously will serve read traffic, and in some cases, if you have a regional outage, you could promote a read replica. So the word we use is called promote. So promotion of a read replica would ensure that this becomes a read write copy. But be aware about one thing here. Two things. First thing, read replica promotion is not automated. You can automate it by using Lambda function and event bridge functionality, but it is not out of the box available. You have to create that setting for you. So that is one. Second, when you are promoting a read replica and it is becoming a read write copy for you, its connection string would remain the same. So if your application here was taking or talking to DB endpoint, let's say it was called EP01 as an endpoint. Application code is still referring to it. This read replica, when it is promoted, let's say it is my EP02 endpoint. So I may have to modify my application, then only it would be trying to talk to the read replica. So that is one way, that first we have to promote, and second we may have to point my application to this read replica. Another way of doing the same approach could be that, let's say I have a DNS setting, and in DNS record my database is currently pointing to endpoint 1 here. So my application code is not directly talking to this endpoint, but it is referencing the DNS name which we have, the DNS record which is present into my DNS server or Route 53. So what I could do, once I promote this read replica, I would get another endpoint. Let me call it endpoint 2, which I am getting. So I won't modify anything on my application, but I'll come to my DNS entry, and here it will say DB, you will be now redirecting request to EP2. So application level modification is not required. It still keeps on asking question on the connection on the endpoint called DB, and behind the scene it will start pointing to EP2 now. So that's how we would be promoting a read replica. So you promote it first, and then you either swap records into DNS or you modify application so the calls would come to the right location. Alright, so hopefully this thing is clear. So read replica is a good solution. First thing, it can be created within account, it can be created across account, it can be of different sizes as well, no problem at all, but it is not real time. The replication would always be asynchronous, and you can have multiple read replica if you want. Right. So hopefully by this time some process has happened in our environment. As we could see, this is still happening, modifying, it is available, but my read replica is still getting created. So let's give it few seconds. Once it is ready, I'll come back and we'll see some more details around it. All right. So now this read replica is ready. As we could see here, there is the primary, there is a read replica on top of it, and let's go ahead and see some of the details associated with it. Right. So now we have a different endpoint altogether, which is called RR1, database 1 and something else, whereas my traditional database endpoint was different. If I go to database 1, its endpoint is database 1, right? So there is a difference between endpoint. Plus, if I go back to my read replica, I should be able to see the events associated if there is any. Like here, DB instance restarted, restored from snapshot, replication for the read replica resumed. So this all has happened when I initiated the process of getting this thing. Now, in its configuration, things can be changed if you want to. So this information is available. You could set up some setting, performance, insight information, instance size and all. That can all be set up, should not be a problem. And obviously maintenance and backup can be enabled. Same thing like we could do into traditional way, that is also available if I want to perform some operations here. The one more interesting stuff which may be interested here is this. See this. So currently my replication status is into replication stage. It doesn't have right now any lag. So there, because there is no data, so there is no lag between both of them. And I could clearly see it is running in 1B and the read replica is running into 1A here, and it is replicating. I could have head it into another region also, shouldn't be a problem. So I hope you have a better understanding of what is a read replica and how you could utilize it for some of your workload. So we will talk about more interesting stuff into the next chapter. Till then, enjoy your time. Talk to you soon. Thank you.